Marvin.
Hold on. Good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this episode of Talk About It with Marvin Lee. This week, I'm super excited because I'm joined by my guest and my friend, Islande, who has written a book. In her book, you can see a little bit of the glare, and I'll post a link here just shortly. But it's called "The Power of Forgiveness," and I'm excited because I've had the opportunity to work with Islande. She's a phenomenal person, and after reading the book, which you can get on Amazon, and again, I will post a link. But after reading the book, I've developed a deeper love and appreciation for her as an individual. Um, so again, I'd like Isla, I want to welcome you to this episode of Talk About It with Marvin Lee. And how I want to start is I want you to tell us a little bit about your journey.
Well, thank you, Marvin, for having me here. And thank you for the introduction. Well, to start off, my journey has not been easy, as you know. And yes, we are friends. And so we've had lots of conversations in the past, about different things and, how I grew up. And so, it's been rough, but a lot of
Hmm.
lessons learned. And, I feel grateful, for the lessons and, for the little bit of wisdom that I've gained during my journey. And so originally, I'm from
Right.
Haiti. And so I came here when I was pretty young.
Hmm.
And so, you know, um, I lived here as I got here into the country. I lived here with, I'm a little nervous, so I apologize. Um, with my dad. And he had a living girlfriend at the time. And so, actually, me and my siblings,
Hold on.
we came here together. And so,
Hold
growing
on,
up,
Isla. I lost your sound. Hold on. I lost your
okay.
sound. There you go. There you go.
Yeah. So, growing up, in Miami, it was a little rough, as I, had conversation with you in the past, I've told you I came from a broken home. And so, which I believe, like, my dad was definitely struggling with mental health. And unfortunately,
Hmm.
it happens. I think for a lot of the immigrants that come here, their main concern
Hmm.
is usually, providing. So my dad, was a big provider. He focused on that, and but as I got older, I realized that definitely he was struggling with mental health, and so
Right.
definitely a lot
And
of
I know you're
broken.
nervous. So again, do not be nervous. And so I kind of want to, I wanted you to give us a sense of who Island is, and you're kind of going there. Um, and because my next question was before becoming an author, who was Island, and you kind of told us that, and the one thing I've always loved about you is you're just honest, and I know you were from Haiti, you came here at an early age, but one of the questions I do want to ask you before I ask about the book is, when did you first realize that forgiveness would become a part of your life's purpose?
That's a good question. um, yeah, that's a good question. You know what? About few years ago, I fell in love with a lady called Ian Levenzant, and I'm sure you've heard of her, right? She's connected with
Hmm.
Oprah Winfrey.
Yes,
And
yes.
so, so I was just flipping through the channels one day, watching television, flipping through the channels, and I came across, one of her episodes, and where she talks about, forgiveness and,
Hmm.
healing oneself and, just therapeutic stuff. And at first I was like, who's this lady? She's like so boisterous and just, but the more I listened to her, everything she had to say made sense, So she forced you to kind of just look within and, to figure out, like,
Hmm.
okay, how can I be better? Right. And so she talked
Hmm.
about, finding forgiveness, once you're able to tap into that, then things will, fall
Mm-hmm.
into place. Not in those exact words, but that's how I processed it at the time. And so I began to, do the work. And part of it was just
Mm-hmm.
having to go back, to my just growing up as a kid, and all the brokenness and everything that I had went through. And so I had to get into a
Mm-hmm.
place where I was like, okay, I can't change what happened, but you know, the person that I am now, I can begin to work on myself. And how do you do that? You got to get to a point where you can move past, the pain, the hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean it
And,
didn't happen. And mhm.
and it's kind of unfair. I was gonna ask the question, what inspired you to write the book? And you're kind of, I kind of hear that, in terms of what inspired you to write the book. But the more appropriate question from me right now, and this is not really a trick question, but I know you. So, who did you write this book for?
uh, you know, really is it primarily for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think it was needed for, the type of work, like I've done, the type of work you've done, Marvin, and
Mm-hmm.
the numerous of clients that I've come in contact with in the past. So definitely, for that purpose. And
Mm-hmm.
you know it, it, it needed to be written, and it was a way for me to
Mm-hmm.
just, because I know the people I've came across, some of the people I've worked with, I guess at times, I come across as being, I guess somewhat mysterious, unless I take a liking to you, or, want to do a sit down and just, kind of talk, and,
Mm-hmm.
about my past. And so, yeah, I just felt like it was needed, and it felt, I
Okay.
felt freed,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to ask you another question. I got a ton of questions, but I'm going to try to keep it because, of course, we could talk all day about this. Um, what do you hope readers feel after they read the final page? What is that message that you want readers to take away from this after reading the final page of this book? What do you want them to feel?
What I like readers to take away from this book is to be okay with who you are. Um, be okay with your truth,
Mm-hmm.
and know that God exists,
Mm-hmm.
and that, you don't have to stay in that pain that you're in, and that we all struggle. No one's perfect. We all have a past.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's just what you choose to do in the moment, and how you move forward with life.
Now going into the book, because you addressed some very, you were very vulnerable, you were very honest, and the one of the relationships. Talk about your family first off. I know because I know it's you, and I know you had your sister Marie, and you have two brothers. So total, mom, dad, it was five kids, right?
It was four,
And early
actually.
on, four. Okay, talk
Four,
about the
yeah.
chaos. Okay, so talk about the chaos that ensued in your childhood, the things that happened early on, because I noticed, as with yourself and many other people, we don't realize our stories. If we know how to take our power back, our stories have been written, and there's success to come from that, depending on how I view what has happened. But talk about your family makeup, because I want you to start to begin to address um, the early traumas that happened, because those earlier situations, earlier traumas, if we don't heal from those, we continue to carry those, it can define our lives for the better or the worse. And after reading your book, I see you coming out on the other side. But can you talk about those, the relationships and the things that began to happen? Because I'm sure that you're not the only one. And
Right.
again, I share, I mean, I too, um, not to the degree that you experienced, but I too have those traumatic memories and experiences from childhood, But I want you to
Yeah.
talk about yours, because that's what made the book resonate so much with me. Your raw honesty, and just you went into, you held nothing back, So talk about
I
that for a little
know.
bit.
um, yeah, I mean, definitely the abandonment issues, growing up, And unfortunately, that's what happens, when parents, decides to, um, go off and do their own thing and not be responsible for the children that they bring in to this world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and so definitely my siblings and I felt um, abandoned. Um, you know, we went back and forth to different families' homes, not ever feeling protected,
Mm-hmm.
feeling vulnerable, as a youngster. And the abuse, whether it was
Mm-hmm.
physical, sexual abuse, you know, that was dealt with, and just not ever feeling protected, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And
so,
you mentioned that in the book, and one of the like two of the most fascinating, actually three of the most fascinating earlier on in the book, the most fascinating relationships that I read about, the relationship with your mom. So I want to talk about how when you talk about the abandonment, I want you to talk about your mom, speak to her state of mind, um, because that was the first piece of abandonment, right?
yeah,
And then your relationship with your dad. Actually, there were four relationships. The relationship with your dad, I want you to talk about that. Then it was your brother, your sister, the relationship you had with your sister. That I was just reading along. Like I finished this book, like when I told you I was going to read it, I finally got into it, and I couldn't stop. So I want you to start out with the relationship with your mom first, because in my experience, and I'm not a paid therapist, paid counselor, or anything, but in my life's work and in the experience that I've
oh,
accumulated, I noticed that a lot of times how our relationships are formed with our parents or the lack thereof. Because even in the lack of a relationship, it does form a relationship. So the lack of an absence of a relationship brings about a relationship too, whether it's the
yeah,
relationship with self or the relationship with other people. But talk about
yeah,
what your relationship was like with your mother first. We're going to
yeah,
start there.
yeah. So, my mom, she passed away when I was pretty young. So I really honestly don't remember too much of her, other than what I've, written in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what I really remember about my mom is like like thinking back now, like she was just, I think, out of touch with, everything that was really going on. I think that, I want to say that perhaps, of course, she had her own issues,
Mm-hmm.
but it, it didn't feel like, she didn't feel like it wasn't like a mother and, daughter's relationship. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
it was just,
How
I never
often
felt.
of the time that you were with her, and were the little bit that you did learn about her when you did, how many interactions were there, for the short time that you had her around?
Not too many, Marvin, not too many.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that did stayed with me was when she decided to bring us, dropped us off to my aunt's house, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like it almost seems like she was so disconnected to us, you know. So yeah, that's what I remembered.
And speaking about your aunt, I want you to touch on the relationship with your dad first. But it is important how you highlighted, like when your mom dropped you off. Now, the aunt that your mom dropped you off with, was this her sister or was this your
My
father's
dad's
sister?
That was my father's sister. Yeah.
Okay. So, did you have any relationships with your biological relatives on your mother's side?
I have an uncle, who is her youngest brother. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I have a
And
relationship with him.
okay. And so, when your mom dropped you off with your aunt, because I know that there were, how many cousins did you have at the time? Because I know in the book you talked about, the happiness, the feeling, the exhilaration. I remember you talking about that. But talk about how quickly it went from what you thought it was to what it became in terms of, and I don't
Yeah.
want to give away
So
too much because, again, viewer, if you're watching this, you should definitely buy this book. But go ahead, Isla.
yeah. So yeah. Well, living with my aunt, as I explained in the book, it was not. It was not the nicest way, of living. She had many children, and so they weren't too nice. It's kind of like you was fighting for your life.
Mm-hmm.
Most days. But so it was what it was. But
Mm-hmm.
but yeah.
Now, in her house, because I know in the book you talked about, of course, she had the space to accommodate you, and I know it was yourself, your sister Maria, your two brothers, so that's four. So now your
Hmm.
mom has dropped four kids off with your aunt. And how many kids total does she have?
Um, Let me think now. She probably maybe had 5 or 6 children of her own then.
Mhm. That were in the
Hmm.
house with. So there are
Yeah.
5 or 6 kids plus
Hmm.
her. That's
Hmm.
seven,
Hmm.
six, 6 or 7 people plus the fourth is just joined. So that's what 10 or 11, right? Now, did she in terms of because she's an adult, obviously. So was there someone in her life that she was involved with, like a fiance, a
Oh
boyfriend,
yeah,
or was there someone?
she had a husband. Uh-huh.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So now we're looking at 11 or 12 people total in this household. So speak about the nature, because one of the things that I know you talked about, and like I felt so many different emotions when I was reading along because I felt you. So this is my dad's sister. You're supposed to take care of me. I've been in horrible situations up to this point. So finally I have my moment. I'm in a space now where I can breathe, and that wasn't the case. So can you talk
Yeah.
about how that relationship shifted once you moved in the house, the relationship with your aunt and the relationship with your cousins? Because I heard you say that it's about survival most days, but speak to the readers about, or the viewers
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. Well, I think for my aunt, being that my dad had already traveled, into the US, and I guess they kind of saw the situation as, I guess, a financial gain. I mean, financially he was still supporting us, and making sure that my aunt had, um, the financial means to be able to take care of us. But you know what she chose to do with that financial help, she did what she wanted to do with it, so it didn't really go to us. So
Hmm.
she wasn't really providing and taking care of us, other than living there, at her house.
And now with that,
So
because in the book I remember you said that the financial support that was coming to you from your dad for his children, she spent it on her children, and that there were a lot of
right.
days that I know you say you had to go to bed hungry, and there were things that you were made to do, like food was held over your head, like if you do this, then this, and you would do it anyways, but it's kind of like you didn't get the food or whatnot.
Right.
And her children, like what was that atmosphere like? Because it's sad, because we have family. I should be protected. Now I'm being bullied, and I'm not being provided for. So what do you still maintain a relationship with any of those relatives up until this day?
No, no. No, I don't have a relationship with them, and it's not because, like, I've forgiven, and so I've moved on. I think,
Hmm.
you know it's always up to a person to figure out, which relationship is meaningful, what you want to keep in your life, right? And so
Hmm.
I've made peace with my past. I've made peace with, with that situation with my aunt and her children, and so I move on. So
Hmm.
no, I don't have anything to do with them. But yeah, it was just one of those hard situations, growing up, where the
Hmm.
people that were supposed to be protecting you, they failed you,
Hmm.
unfortunately. And so, yeah. So
Now
yeah.
also, and that is, I find that to be sad. Like I don't understand how people bring emotional harm to anybody else, family especially. Like I can't get that. I have a friend who is a foster parent in Arizona. It's one of my absolute closest friends, and the way he loves children and nurtures children, like we talk about this all the time. And then one of the themes that I saw in your book, and I paid attention to, because we haven't touched really on the relationship with your dad yet, and how when he finally did come to pick you guys up, what was the nature of the relationship like with his sister? But let me finish saying this. My friend, he nurtures these children, and so we oftentimes have these conversations about how people can be so, like, I don't understand how people can just be so, what's the word I'm looking for, evil to
Yeah.
children. Like I just
Yeah.
don't get it.
Yeah, me too.
I don't.
That's something I can't ever, I will never be able to understand because, they're
Mm-hmm,
helpless, right?
mm-hmm,
Children are helpless, and I think children are
mm-hmm.
angels, right? And
Right.
so, but, you know,
So how
I
long were
think
you?
hurt people just hurt others, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So,
And that's a fascinating concept, because and this is the thing I love about having conversations, because I always, this for me, I don't necessarily think that hurt people, because I was hurt in a lot of, this is my experience. For me, the last thing that I want to do to anybody else is to cause the same pain to them that I felt. So
yeah.
I
But
think that
that
hurt
because
people,
you done, yeah. Yeah, sorry to
well, yeah, so
interrupt.
what I
That
was
because
going to
you,
say is, I think hurt people who lack the awareness, hurt people who
absolutely.
lack compassion, hurt people who lack empathy, or
Yeah,
who
because
don't
you've
know
done
how
the
to
work on
love.
yourself, Marvin. Yeah, we've done the work on ourselves. That's why.
But even
Yeah.
before now, like when I was a
Mhm.
kid, like I've grown up, even after all of the mess that went on with me, I was always that one in my family that I was ready to, like, I'm a protector first.
Me
Like
too.
it just did something to me. Like I want to, that's why people know that I'm quick to swing, right? I'm at the age now where it's like, I'm not trying to fight, and I ain't gonna shoot nobody. We ain't gonna do that. But if I have to, but I'm the one that my nieces and nephews know that when they're gonna get scripture from everybody else, I mean, praise the Lord, hallelujah, and I love me some Jesus. But
Yeah.
sometimes I'm not gonna wait for the scripture to be fulfilled for the situation to change. That's why I'm quick to hear and slow to speak, because I will end up in jail, Islam, because behind the book there was some, and again, you brought back feelings and thoughts and emotions in my own life as to how I felt like I had not been provided for, or I had not been nurtured. What was the relationship like? Because I know your dad, he was away, and I read the book, so I know that he had
Yeah.
another relationship. But how long were you and your siblings in that? And then I want you to talk about Marie, because that relationship, your relationship with your brother Frangel, that was really important. And I want you to talk about Marie, because we haven't even talked about the mental health aspect, and the lack of having a nurturing parent while you're in a place with a relative that doesn't have your best interest at heart. So I want you to talk about Marie, and I want you to talk about your brother, because those two relationships, I noticed that, but it was how you spoke about the depression that you went through with, and I'm trying not to get too far ahead because I want you to tell the story, but I definitely want to know how long were you in the home with your aunt and her kids before your father finally came to get you guys.
Mm. Yeah. Um, we probably lived with my aunt for about maybe about 2 years or so. About two
And
years or so.
again, for the chaos that you were in, again, it doesn't matter whether it was 2 months, 2 years, 10 years,
Oh
doesn't
yeah.
matter. You went
Like
through a lot,
forever.
and no child, right? No child should ever have to experience that. Um,
Yeah.
Now, the relationship with Marie, talk about that a little bit, because I felt like I knew Marie, by reading, but I
Yeah,
wasn't expecting things to happen that happened. Like you took me on this emotional roller coaster. And again, guys, get the book. I'm gonna post the link. You can get it 19.99 paperback copy. You can get it 39.99 hardback, and you will love this book and definitely review it. But anyways, back to you, Isla. The relationship with Marie. Can you
yeah.
talk about
So
that a little
yeah, Marie was my older sister, and she it felt the relationship with her felt more like as like a mother and child. Like she was a mom to me, so she took care of me. And so um Marie did everything for me that a mother, should have been doing.
bit? Mm-hmm.
And so, she was my world.
Mm-hmm.
And so when she became sick and passed away, that was really hard for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Now, when you talked about that in the book, can you go back to the beginning of when she first, because she was fine, nothing was wrong with her. Just all of a sudden, she just is stricken with some type of illness and doesn't bounce back. What was like? How quick was that process? And what was, because I know that she was your only, like, the even how you're talking about the relationship now between a mother and a daughter, and that's what you had. So what was your mind space like? That she was just here, she's okay, and now she's down stricken. Because how
yeah,
long was she sick before she finally succumbed to her illness?
also keep in mind too, I was so young, you know what I'm saying? So the time frame is kind of like, I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't be exact on that. Um, but it was transitioning from leaving my aunt's house to now, somewhere else, living somewhere
Mm-hmm.
else. And so it must have been maybe, I don't know, maybe a month after we left my aunt's house, she had gotten sick. And so I really
And so
didn't,
before you left your aunt's house, she's fine.
she was
You leave
fine.
your aunt's house, and then
Yeah.
all of a
And
sudden.
keep in mind too, she's the one that sent a message to my father to tell
Mm-hmm.
my father how horrible we were living in that space.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right.
And
So
I
she,
remember
mhm.
in the book, yeah, that yes, but there was a part that you played in that. It was between you and, how did your father finally find out what was going on? I remember you talked about the anger that your aunt felt because now her finances are being cut off. But
Yeah,
you played a part in that too, because I know there was a gentleman who showed up. I forgot his name,
yeah, it was a,
and he
yeah.
knew your dad, and you
He knew
asked
my
him to
dad.
get the message to.
Yeah,
Okay, so Marie was still alive at this point.
yeah. Marie was still alive. We were still at my
Okay.
aunt's, and so my dad's friend came to visit my aunt, and so Marie felt like it was the time to, get send a message over to my dad
Hmm.
and to tell him how horrible we've been living and how my aunt was mistreating us, and
So at
that
this point, your dad, he's still in Haiti, and you guys are here in Miami at this point, right?
no, no, no. My dad had been in the U.S. We were still in Haiti.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay.
But he didn't
So nobody's
know.
in Haiti.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
he didn't know what life was really like for us,
Right.
back in Haiti, because I mean, he in his mind thought
Oh, that's right.
we're
He
with
was
his
in the
sister.
U.S. You right. He
Yeah.
was in the U.S. You guys were still in Haiti. You
Yeah.
get the message out. Then he comes. So
Yeah.
talk about that a little bit before I get to the knight in shining armor mentality that you had. I want you to talk about him rescuing you, but the relationship with your brother, because there was an aspect of the relationship with your brother that I found to be like, if Marie was the mothering type, because you're the baby, correct?
Yeah. Hmm.
With it's fragile, right?
There was France. France is my older brother,
Okay,
and Franz was my dad.
gotcha. The relationship with your brother, even though your father was alive and he had been absent for so long, what was the relationship like with your brother?
Well, with my my older brother, it always felt like he was a father to me, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Till this day, till this day, yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, thank God I had Marie for the time I had her, and my older brother Franz. He's always been supportive. After Marie passed on, I mean, he took on the role to just take care of, myself and my sibling, my other sibling, and so Franz growing up, he was our hero, you know.
Uh-huh.
So yeah.
Okay. And okay, so your second brother, because we talked about Marie, we talked about France. Now your second brother, who later in the book, I'm not going to talk about that piece. I'll let you talk about it. But what was his name, and what was the relationship like with him?
um, you know, he was really good to me. I mean, we weren't as close as I was with Franz, who is my older brother, but we had an okay relationship, And
Mm-hmm.
God bless the dead; he's no longer here. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he's passed away about 3 years ago. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Now, with your dad, when he shows up after you and Marie successfully get the message by your dad's to your dad's friend, um, and you find out that you now no longer have to live in this torment, this hell that you've been experiencing for these past couple of years or what have you, what was your mind? Uh, what was your thinking process like at that point?
I mean, for any kid, who's been living in misery, um, your thinking is, you're free, right? You're, um, a better life ahead, or and was just happy to be out of there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But there wasn't really any emotional attachment to that situation. So it was just happiness to just be away from there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So once you guys transition to the, now you're in his space with himself and your stepmom. So I've been rescued from this situation, and during this unfair treatment, this torture, this chaos, I'm now with the man that's supposed to make this right. So what was it like for you all of a sudden now when you're getting much of the same just from a different face?
Yeah. I know, right?
Because the book, I mean, you took me there's like it was just the emotional roller coaster. And then you talk about how it impacted the relationship with the men that you had in your life. And we don't have time to get into all of that. So I'm going to ask you some other questions and try to keep it shorter because I know you're nervous
Yeah,
and I really don't want to give away too much. I want people to get the book, right?
absolutely.
But
Well, keep in mind,
one other
like I
thing that
had,
I do want you to
mhm, yeah, yeah. Keep in
go
mind,
ahead.
like
Go ahead.
you know, I never knew my father, right? And so my dad migrated here to the U.S. when my mom was pregnant with me. So I had never met my dad, other than maybe having, few words with him over the phone while I was in Haiti. So when I got here to the US, that was my first time meeting my dad. So of course he felt like a stranger, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, my dad was a huge disciplinarian type of person, and just he was not an affectionate person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so my dad always felt like a stranger to me, you know, and that's really the reason why I did. Part of the reason why I wrote the book,
Mm-hmm.
finding forgiveness for my father, and
Mm-hmm.
and others, of course. But yeah, so that's what we didn't really have a relationship. So
And now, what are the last things? And then I'm gonna kind of navigate away from the book and ask you questions based on what you wrote and my knowledge of who you are as an individual. But can you, if you feel like it, if you want to, because I didn't know this piece about you is that I didn't know you had lost a child before. And when I say that, people may think, well, she was pregnant, she had a miscarriage. No, you had an actual child that you had raised. Um, and talk about that. if you can.
Yeah, I had to take a deep breath there.
Now, if you
Um,
don't want to address that, you don't have to. But
uh, you know, I talked about some of the things I talked about in the book. You know, I, I, I spoke about them for a reason because I know there's a lot of people struggling,
mhm.
with grief and and so I wanted to touch on that on purpose, right? And so it's okay, I can talk about it. I mean, it's tough, right? I had a 3-year-old daughter, Brittany, and she passed away. It was a tragedy that happened between my oldest daughter, and Brittany while they were playing. And so yeah.
I've watched you over like since I've known you, like how you are with your daughters and how nurturing you are. And in the book, when your daughter finally told you that she felt responsible for what happened, because you had been a part of so much abuse and neglect and everything else, but how you were able to make that connection with your daughter in that moment and basically reiterate to her that that was not her fault. Like,
Yeah,
two things are true: I lost a daughter, but I have you are still my child, and I don't hold you
absolutely.
responsible for this, but for you to go through what you went through. And at this point, I don't know that you had actually started doing as much work then as you are now. I don't even know from the book if you had started that work, but it's something about being that nurturing mother that kicked in, and you were able to bring her some confidence and peace, and so that was real monumental for me reading that part in the book. Um, and you addressed a lot of one thing that I want you to talk about briefly, if you can, is the importance of um, caring for our mental health. Like, we as individuals, and especially we as Black people, we don't even like going to the doctor for things that we really need to go to the doctor about. And a
Right.
lot of people don't realize the same way you have to see a medical doctor for issues with your, your regarding your medical issues. I I see a dentist because I have issues with my teeth, whatever. But we
Yeah.
oftentimes do not
We
seek the
neglect our
help
mental
of a
health.
psychologist or a psychiatrist because there's negative stigma around, well, you're just crazy, or there are things that literally happen in our lives that are written off as being, you're just mean, or they're just crazy, or they're just this. No, and it's an improper care for my mental health. And I know you've been a strong advocate of mental health. Uh, can you talk about the importance of properly being treated properly for mental health? That's the first question. I want you to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, definitely, you have to take care of your mental health. If you feel that, if you don't feel your full self, if you don't feel like you're adequate enough, if you don't feel that, if you're feeling like you have more bad days than okay days than good days, then definitely you should
Mm-hmm.
definitely take the time to, meet with a therapist, meet with a psychiatrist. If you're prescribed medication, for, certain disorders, please make sure you stay on your medication, and it's
Mm-hmm.
okay not to feel okay all the time, you just, long as you
Mm-hmm.
talk about it, right? You don't isolate yourself and understand that, we're as human beings, we're as people, we gonna go through things, right? That's just part of life, and we all go through something sometimes, but taking care of your mental health is so necessary, so important. So yeah, I mean, lived experience growing up, coming from a broken home, and things come up for you, and not being afraid to, find that safe space to address them, and getting the help that you need is so important,
Mm-hmm.
to who you are. I mean, if you don't
Mm-hmm.
have peace with your mental health, you have
Right.
nothing, right? So how do you go by your daily life and do your daily activities, right?
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Now the book is about forgiveness, so I'm going to ask you some questions because we're already at 39 minutes, and I can I know my friend, and I know your energy, and I can see that this conversation is as hard um, speaking about it as it was writing about it. But let me ask you this: when defining forgiveness, can someone forgive without forgetting?
Oh no, you don't forget, right? So yeah, you can forgive, and it
Hmm.
doesn't mean you have to forget. It doesn't mean you have to ever want to be friends with that, particular person or revisit that situation again, right? So
Hmm.
it's just saying that, I choose to be in peace. I choose to find peace for myself, and I release, I let it, let it go and allow the universe to deal with it. That's all. It's all about you.
Okay,
It's not for the other person, right? Yeah.
right. So, with that being said, is forgiveness a one-time decision, or is it an ongoing process?
It's an ongoing process. I believe it's an ongoing process. Yeah, because
Hmm.
it's hard, right?
Hmm.
It's tough. It's a difficult thing to do, to be
Hmm.
able to,
That's my next question. So, before you get too
yeah.
far, because it's funny, like you're reading my mind right now. So, when you say forgiveness is hard, why do you think forgiveness is so hard? Why do you think it's so difficult?
I mean, think about it. Some of the things like you've endured, Marvin, I've endured, or the people like who failed us, right? As youngsters,
Hmm.
even as adults,
Hmm.
some, the things that, people have done to me in the past, what I've endured, it's like, it was hard to be able to say, you know what? Um, I choose to just move forward and, not think of you or give you free space in my head, right? You live in rent free in my head. You've done me wrong, and I'm still allowing you to do that. To
Hmm.
me, it's a way for me to empower myself,
Hmm.
right? And say that, I choose to move forward and not
Yes.
allow you to stay rent free in my mind, So, yeah. And I believe in karma. I think, if
Hmm.
you do good, good will come to you. If you do bad, bad will come to you. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
So you're kind of answering a lot of the questions that I wanted to ask as you're speaking, because we talked about why forgiveness is so difficult, and then have you ever have you ever believed that you could never forgive someone?
No. Uh-uh. No.
I,
Yeah, that would
I
take too
know
much.
you. I had to ask the question anyway. I
Yeah, that
know
would
you,
take
so
too
I
much.
know
Yeah.
because you've chosen not to allow people, like you are so much stronger. Hmm. And I knew that about you. Like I knew that about you. Hang on just a second. My computer is doing something crazy here. Hang on just 1 second. All right, yeah, I knew that about you, so I wasn't worried about. I'm just asking to give everybody else a chance to catch up and know how great you are. I've always known. Now let's see, and I know the answer to this because I know you, but I'm going to ask it anyways because I want people to hear these questions. But can someone forgive even if the other person never apologizes?
Of course. Of course, you
Hmm.
can forgive even if the other
Well, see, I'm
person.
asking it anyway. You and I know this because we've done the work. We've done the work. Even if you don't apologize, it's okay
It's
because
okay to move on.
forgiveness
It's okay.
is not
Mhm.
for you. It's for me. I refuse to drink poison and wait for you to die. And when I harbor resentments and when I harbor that unforgiveness, essentially that's what I'm doing. I'm drinking poison and I'm hoping
Yeah,
that you're gonna die
absolutely.
while harming me.
Yeah.
Now, is reconciliation
You'll be
always
blocking your own
necessary after
blessings,
forgiveness?
you'll be blocking your own blessings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And with that being said, is reconciliation because a lot of us we're and especially in our culture, we are so religious and so churchified and so scripture down and is is reconciliation always necessary after forgiveness?
No, it's not always
Just because
necessary.
I've forgiven you, do I need to reconnect? And why do you feel that way? Because we think the same way, but why is that your truth? Why is that your experience?
You know, for me, my example would be, if you're a snake and I know that you're a snake, you've bitten me once. Just because I choose to forgive and walk away from you doesn't mean that I should bring myself back and get another bite. You know what I mean? So whether you change or don't change,
Because you
that's solely
still
up to
got
you.
fangs, and if you bit me once, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
This
it's all
see,
up
this is
to
what we're
you.
friends because we think a lot. Okay, so when it comes to healing, let me see. What surprised you the most while you were researching or while you were writing your book? What surprised you the most
About healing,
about yourself?
about
Yeah,
myself.
anything, anything.
Mm, about how resilient that I am.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I think
Okay.
oftentimes
Now,
we get so, mhm. Yeah, we get so caught up into
right
our everyday
now,
life
where
and
I
just
am, I'm
going
going to
on.
ask you a little bit about your.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
So now, what I want to know with regards to faith, because I know you're a very faithful woman. I know this because we've had conversations, right? So, how has your relationship with God shaped your understanding of forgiveness? Shaped yours, not every. How has your relationship with God, not the relationship with church folk, not the
Right, right.
relationship with
Oh, yeah,
somebody that, no, how has your personal relationship with God shaped your understanding of forgiveness?
yeah. I just continue to feel peace and peace. Just continue to, to find my purpose. You know, that's what my relationship with God has allowed me to, to continue
Mm-hmm.
to do and
Mm-hmm.
feel. Um, I'm in a place in my life where I can say, I truly feel peaceful. And I think it is because of my relationship with God and me choosing to,
Mm-hmm.
find
Now, were there any
forgiveness.
mhm. Were there any particular scriptures that you relied on, or that inspired you, or motivated you, or that you held to when you were writing the book?
Honestly, Marvin, no particular scripture. And I'm not a person that, that knows the Bible as well as you do, not even close. But just my, I'm a very spiritual person, just my connection,
Mm-hmm.
with God, and just, being able to meditate and, just feeling connected
Mm-hmm.
with God, just allow me to,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to, walk my path and feeling, peaceful and just be able to be the person that I am today. I know without,
Mm-hmm.
my relationship with God, I couldn't still be here, with all the things that I've
Mm-hmm.
endured, since my childhood. So
And that's one of the things from the moment that I met you. That's one of the things that I admire the most about you. And you're not the first person to say this to me about my knowledge of the scripture. And that's not what it's even about, because for me it's the energy of the person. And I know you're a spiritual person, but you have said things to me before that, and the reason, because I know that scripture is my safe space, right? So a lot of people, when they say that I know the scriptures, for me, in the beginning was the word was with God, the word was God. So when I have a relationship with the word, I have a relationship with God. And that's my safe space. And all of everything that I ever went through, all I ever had to hold on to was the word of God in me. And I made it real to me, and I internalized that. So, and I try to make that, um like, I don't force what I believe on anybody else, but if that has become a part of me and I'm giving that to you, or if I'm giving you me, you're getting that too, but I've always loved you because you've spoken to that nature in me so many times, and I want to make sure that you know that just because you don't feel like you might know how to quote scripture as well as somebody else, no, your relationship with God is still what it is. I know you personally, so we're gonna start there. But let me ask you this: how would you respond? And I kind of know this, so it's not fair. But how do you respond to someone who says that I know God tells me to forgive, but I just can't? How do you respond to that?
You know, what I would say is for that person to dive deeper into themselves and to um, you know, want to really do the work on themselves and
Mm-hmm.
try to figure out why that is that you cannot forgive, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people need to understand forgiveness doesn't mean you ever have to revisit that relationship or that, that person that did you wrong, but it's solely to free yourself, and so
Absolutely.
I think sometimes people just need to examine themselves as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Now, if somebody is listening today, well, let me see if that's where I want to go with this. Nah, this has been kind of heavy, so let's move past this. I'm gonna give you some. We're gonna make this fun again. So these are fun questions, right?
Hmm.
Coffee or tea? But just let the people get to know Island a little more on the on the less serious side. So if
I
it's
like
coffee or
I like
tea, what is it?
both. I like both. It just depends
But
on my
if
mood.
you had to live for the rest of your life only on one, which one are you choosing?
Coffee.
Me too. Me too. Let's see. Well, we kind of talked about this, but if you had a favorite Bible verse, what would it be? Psalm 23, Jesus wept is a short one. I tell people all the time. If you don't remember
You know what?
anyone, just remember
Psalm
Jesus wept.
23. Psalm 23. I actually have it tattooed on me, actually. Yeah.
I know. I remember. All right. Next question. What's your favorite book? Of course, besides your own. What's your favorite book?
Jeez. That's terrible. I can't even think of anything right now, Marvin. I'm sorry.
You talked about Iyanla Van Zant earlier, which
Oh,
you
yeah.
okay, so who's your favorite author?
It would have to be her. Iyanla.
What's your favorite movie? Favorite movie?
Um,
It can be an old one too. It doesn't have to be anything new. Because if you're like me, I just went to the movies for the first time in a long time. Because I normally wait till movies come out or I'm Netflixing and chilling or whatever. But if you had, it could be any movie, present day movie, childhood, doesn't matter. What's your favorite movie?
I love a good love. I love a good love story, but The Notebook. I like
Yes, that
the Notebook.
baby.
I
I
love that.
still love that movie up to this day.
Hmm.
Now this is gonna be a little easier. This is a little easier. Who inspires you?
My children.
Mm-hmm.
My
I
children.
love how you love your children. I love how you talk about them. Like, just it's almost like your greatest joy has always been knowing that you're a parent.
My
Just the
children are
relationship
my
with your
biggest,
daughter.
yeah. Yeah, I
Yes,
always tell people they're my
yes,
biggest
yes,
accomplishment, the way I've, yeah, been able to raise my children
yeah,
and the relationship I have with them, definitely. Yeah.
yeah. This
Hmm.
has been 54 minutes of pure fun for me, and getting to let everybody else meet my friend, um, who is soon to be, and I'm going to speak this, a world renowned author. And you're not just talking about forgiveness. That's just the first of many things that God has for you. I really do appreciate that. And as we get ready to close, I just want to say that, of course, forgiveness does not excuse the pain. It does not rewrite the past. It does not pretend that the hurt never happened. But what forgiveness does is release us from becoming prisoners of our own pain. So, Islam, I want to thank you for taking a moment to remind us that healing is possible, hope is real, and freedom begins when we make the courageous choice to forgive. And to anybody watching, if this conversation touched your heart, of course, I need you to share with someone who may need to hear it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share. I need you to subscribe to this channel so that I can bring you more people like Islam. There's so much I want to do. And again, every conversation has the power to change your life. Islam, again, I just want to thank you. You know, I love you. I'm always gonna love you. And as soon as we're done, I'll give you a call. But
All
thank you
right.
for
Thank you
showing up
so
and
much,
thank you for
Marvin.
sharing and letting us get to know who you were.
Of
And
course.
I'm gonna post a link again. Get your copy. The Power of Forgiveness. My friend did it. There's too much light on this book. You can't see. There we go. The Power of Forgiveness. My friend who is an author. I love you. I am proud of you. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for everything. And we will talk soon. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you guys next week. Same time, same place. Islam, I'll call you later.
All right. Thank you so much, Marvin. All right. Ciao.
Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.